Now, let's talk a little bit about how Camus, as a child, felt both this need and this silence. As I mentioned, he was born in 1913, and his parents, and you see his mother, Catherine Camus, who's holding a picture of her son, who had already died in 1960. She was left without both her husband and her son. So let me say something about her son and about his relationship to his mother. It's extraordinarily important if we really want to understand Camus' life. Camus was born in 1913. His father, Lucien Camus, had moved to French Algeria from Bordeaux for want of employment in his native Bordeaux. Camus was always under the misapprehension, one that he repeats in The First Man, that his father was actually from Alsace, and he left Alsace in 1871 at the end of the Franco-Prussian War when Germany annexed both Alsace and parts of Lorraine into the Greater German Reich or Empire. Um, but in fact, he didn't. He was Bordelais, and he moved to Algeria, as so many other Frenchmen and women did, leaving either mainland France or, in the case of Catherine Camus, leaving Spain, the Balearic Islands, and immigrating to French Algeria at the invitation of the French government. And the people who moved there from either parts of France or from Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, the countries that make up the littoral of the northern littoral of the Mediterranean, went to French Algeria to start a new life. And these were the individuals who we call les pieds noirs, the Blackfeet, a slang term. Nobody really knows the origin of it. Okay. But this was the population in French Algeria that had French citizenship, even though the majority were not from France, but from other countries, but won citizenship when they made the move to this part of North Africa that had been basically annexed by France in the mid 19th century and made part of the French metropole. Terribly important historical point to keep in mind. So, Catherine Camus was from the Balearic Islands. Now, in 1914, Lucien is called to the colors. The First World War has begun. He's drafted, and he almost immediately dies in the Battle of the Marne in the fall of 1914. This is the father that Camus never knew and that he learned very little about because his mother was was deaf, partly mute, and illiterate. Now, upon the death of her husband, Catherine took the 1-year-old Albert Camus and his older brother, Jean Camus, and moved from the farming village where they lived, called Mondavi, to the city of Algiers, okay, where her mother, Catherine's mother, lived. And they moved into her apartment. Now, this is terribly, terribly important. Camus spent his childhood until he was 17 in an apartment where his mother, his grandmother, who wasn't deaf but was illiterate, and his uncle, Etienne, who was illiterate but also partly mute. He had a very limited vocabulary, as did Catherine. Okay. He lived in this apartment until the age of 17 in a working class neighborhood of Algiers called Belcourt, where his mother, Catherine, worked as a cleaning woman. And so it was a life at home, a life that was wrapped in silence and that was marked by the absence of books and of newspapers. Now, the silence he experienced as a child makes its ways, makes its makes its way in so many ways into his writing and into the way in which he understands the world.